Hello, guys. Welcome to The Breakdown. We are your hosts, Tanya Lee and Johanna Burkhart. And we are in our special episode today. We actually are, guys, just so that you are aware, you are watching a premiere right now. This is not a live because we wanted to bring on a special guest today, and it's an international guest, and we just couldn't get the time to work. And so we said, let's just still record it and be able to do a pre-recording and be able to still be with our fans. So this is what this premiere is about. So you're going to see us on the side. And again, guys, if you are watching the replay, make sure that you let us know. Comments. We appreciate all the likes, the hellos, the shares. Right, Johanna? Sharing is caring. You're still on mute. What is this about? Let's fix this. Unmute yourself. There we go. He's back.
Sharing is caring. I'm here.
Sharing is caring. So we are on episode 13. And this episode, we are going to be diving into the Akashic Records. I'm excited for this. How about you, Johanna?
I love the Akashic Records. So anything that we can talk about it is good to me.
I do too, because when I first started diving into it, I kind of felt like, and I'm excited with our guest, how she can, probably explain a lot more. But when I first, heard about the Akashic Records, I'm like, what is this? What is this special library? What is it? Like, can anybody access it? What's this about? So I definitely have questions today. And I love the fact that when I went down that, the research rabbit hole of like, when did it actually start? Because that was my thing. I'm like, where's the historical like pinpoint of these records? Like when people knew for us to access this, right? And so I did some research, and what I found is, I had gone on Gaia.com, but it says one of the earliest references of the Akashic Records in modern times was made by Helena Blavatsky. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Founder of the Theosophical movement in the late 19th century. She claimed she learned of the records from Tibetan monks who said the records could be found in the Akasha or ether, a reference to the space element in Eastern 5-element systems. This fifth element of space is considered the fundamental fabric of reality, from which all other elements emerge, the source of material reality. So, guys, yes. So, in other words, it's like the cosmic hallway, this galactic library. That
through all the work that I've done, everybody can every time we do any kind of healing work or mediumship work, we're always accessing the Akash. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's aura is their own Akashic record.
Yeah. So they say by accessing these records, you can get information about the plans you made as a soul before coming into this life, the lessons you've learned, plan to learn, and then any karma or soul contracts or vows brought from previous lives and guidance to ensure that you keep moving forward as easy as possible. So that's why, and there's all different people who have different ways of tapping into this. But one of the reasons I wanted to bring our specific guest on here, and her name is Carly Roberts. Carly's life completely changed the day she entered the halls. Since then, it has realigned her with the song of her soul. She is an Akashic soul guide and lives in a beautiful farmhouse in southern Spain with her 3 dogs and 4 cats. Right there when I saw that, I was like, well, she's got my vote.
Like, I'll come live with you.
I want to move in.
Sounds so peaceful.
She is involved with her community life in the hometown of Orgiva, a hub for spiritual seekers from across Europe. And she loves wailing in the mountains, singing, and meeting other inspiring people. She just seems like my kind of gal. So I'm really excited to bring her on board from Akashic Soul Readings. So without further ado, welcome, Carly.
Hey, Tanya. Good to see you. You're welcome to come over. There's loads of room here in the farmhouse.
All right. We may hold you to that.
It sounded like a vacation for me. It's like, that sounds beautiful. So like you mentioned within your bio that this completely changed your life, but we really love to get to know our guest. And how did you get into this? How did you go, this is the line that I need to be in to help people with?
Yeah. I mean, I could say that it came to me. I didn't decide. It found me. And I think the clue came actually when I was a teenager. I got my first clue. So I was like typical rebellious teenager. I wasn't interested in anything spiritual, mystical. And one day I was just like walking in the countryside, and I sat down on like this ancient stone bench, like, you know, like we have in England, like really ancient. And I was sitting there, and suddenly I had this really clear sense of like everybody who had sat on that bench before me, like going back hundreds of years. I was like 18 years old, and I suddenly knew with complete clarity, like everything they'd ever felt, done, experienced, it had all gone up into this kind of collective pool of wisdom, you know? And it was really like ding moment. I was like, wow, that's quite profound, you know? And then,
Really?
you know, you forget these things, you sort of put it away.
Yeah, especially as a teenager. I can't imagine being, you know, what you consider that.
Yeah. But I'd say like that was kind of the first knock. The second knock maybe was when I was in my late 20s, and I had a kind of a shift, like an awakening, you know, like many of us have. And it was that moment of like, oh my God, I'm totally part of everything. And in that moment of I'm part of everything, it's like doorways started to open of remembering kind of past lives, of, you know, what we might call psychic intuition. And I think, again, like Johanna was saying, in a way, I was accessing the record without knowing that I was accessing the record.
Right.
So those were the first sort of little knocks, I would say. And I think
How old were you?
The record knocks for you. If it's for you, it knocks for you. You know, you get some clues along the way. And then when it really came for me, I mean, it's an incredible story. Basically, I was just about to go from Spain to England, and my mum had got sick, you know, so it was like a pretty intense time. And as I was leaving, someone said to me, I think you need to work the Akashic record. And you know, when you just get goosebumps, I was like, yeah, that's really true. And I ordered a book. I ordered the book of Linda Howe. It's fantastic, How to Access the Akashic Records. So I ordered the book, sent it to England, completely forgot about it. And then, I mean, this is kind of it's a sad story, but I got to England. My mum was in the hospital. She was really sick. So we had this incredible healing time. We had 5 weeks together where we just sat and we talked, we said everything that was in our hearts. We were hugging and singing, and it was super beautiful. And basically, the day that my mum transitioned from her body, about half an hour after my mum left, I got a knock on the door, and the nurse came in with a package, and she put the package on the bed. And basically, after the nurse left, I looked at the package, I looked at my mum, and I heard the words, "This is her final gift to you. This is what you do now." And I just had like goosebumps on my whole body. And the package was the Akashic record book. And I was like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this is, but I know that this is cool. So I picked up this package and I took it home. And, you know, the first time I opened the book and I started to work with some of those exercises to take you into the Akashic record, it was like, I just know this. You know, I just know this. And I think basically, like Johanna was saying, we all do. We all have access to it, you know, because in a way we're carrying our own Akashic record. It's part of our aura. It's part of our soul. But it was instant for me, that recognition. And I knew like, okay, this is what I do. This is what I need to work
That's
with.
a beautiful story. What a beautiful gift your mom gave you.
How, and you know, Johanna was just asking before, but you were talking, so she didn't want to interrupt you. How old were you when you had the second bit? Because we missed that.
When I had the kind of awakening experience, I was 30, and it came really sudden. It's like, you know, I mean, I guess I'd been just working with things like Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, you know, just really being in presence. And then it was like one day, just boom, my mind just dropped. And I just had this experience of being completely connected to everything.
So you must have had like a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I think it was probably like that. I mean, that state lasted for months. I was just basically walking in parks in this state of kind of bliss. And I actually had to stop teaching. I'd been teaching in colleges at that time. You know, we were having a great time. We were laughing so much, but no learning was happening. Yeah, but it was a gift.
I love that you mentioned How to Read the Akashic Records by Linda Howe, because I feel like that's the go-to book that a lot of people go to when they're first learning about the Akashic Records, because you're not the first person. I mean, I have that, you know, that book myself, but I can't tell you how many times I get that as recommendation. Would you get that too, Johanna, at all? Or have you heard about this book?
I've heard of a lot of them, but
yeah,
I haven't read them, so I don't know them personally.
Yeah. So it's interesting, you know, the light workers that do come up with these, you know, books that help you access these things to, you know, because it is a unique experience for everybody. So it's always interesting to see, you know, what people are writing about and what people like, what triggers people to get into that. So I thought that was really interesting. So we talked about that everybody can access this. I would like to dive in for you when you started to started accessing this for people, when you started doing this for others. What kind of information was coming out to help the people that were coming to you?
I mean, in a way, I think the most important part that came first was that the Akashic record had to prove itself to me.
That's what I was going to ask.
I really trusted it, you know, before I start offering this to others. So what happened is that for 30 days, this is what Linda suggests in the book, which is really beautiful. For 30 days, I did my own readings for myself every single day. And what started coming through those readings was so incredible that it left me like no doubt at all, you know. And I was a little bit stubborn in the beginning. So like the guides would say something like, they kept giving me horsetail tea, drink horsetail tea. And they were saying, like, this is an ancient herb, you know, it's like detoxing not only toxins from your body, it's detoxing karma. And I was just kind of going, okay. And then eventually they gave me this whole paragraph on horsetail tea. And so I went, I Googled it. And the first 5 entries that came up, it was word for word, you know, this is a prehistoric herb, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, okay, I get it. I get there's something here.
So you're doing automatic writing when you're writing it, and
when I was accessing it for myself, it was automatic writing. That seemed like the easiest way. I think as I got better, I could receive it like as a stream of internal dialogue. But in the beginning, the writing was really helpful.
And that's common for people when they're doing it. Is automatic writing usually is the first way of channeling for people.
Yeah. And the second little bit of proof that they gave me, there was one day when they told me to. I was meant to be going to like a singing practice. I was singing with a band and they went, don't do that today. Go for a walk. And they showed me like this beautiful red earth, you know, like you get in Australia.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that looks beautiful, but we don't have any of that here. You know, and they went, just go walking. Just trust us. Just go walking. So I went up into the mountains. I went for the most beautiful walk. And it was almost like a reset, you know, an energetic reset on this walk. And then at the end, as I was coming down, the most incredible sunset, and the whole of the mountain went red. It's like the whole of the earth was just bathed red. And I was walking through this for half an hour.
Pretty.
And I got like this little wink, like, do you trust us now? You know? It's like, okay. So,
I think that's really important to know, is the whole trust thing, because it's like when you get messages and you have any inkling of doubt, you're really changing the message to some aspect because you're not believing it. I mean, I know for me, and Johanna, you know, I can't speak for you too, but you know, for me, it's like I just let things come out now. It's just like, all right, I don't know why they're asking me to say this, but I'm going to say it and then just trust it. And then usually it does resonate. And if it doesn't, then, you know, it's fine. But I've gotten the habit now of just allowing things to come out, like just.
Yeah. And that was the other thing, is in the early days of the giving readings, like really having to have a bit of proof to trust that as well, because sometimes it seems so random what you're asked to say. You know, I remember I know with this lady I'm allowed to speak this, so right at the beginning there was a beautiful Scottish lady, and they were saying to me, speak to her about the Canadian redwood trees. And I was like, God, that sounds really random, huh? So I started to edit it, and I was going, maybe there's redwood trees in Scotland. And they went, no, really, speak to her about Canadian redwood trees. So I was like, okay. So I said it, and she started to cry. And she said, I lived in Canada for years. I had such a profound connection with those trees. My cousin is still a ranger there in Canada protecting those trees. And it was like, okay, it's like you have to say it as it comes. You can't dilute it somehow. And sometimes it feels like a responsibility as well. Like in the beginning, there was some really specific things coming. Like kind of medical advice and things that I could not really know, So, that kind of thing can feel like a responsibility. But I really trust that what comes through the record is so protected, it's so held, it's really only what that person really needs to know for their highest benefit. And so I remember at the beginning as well, there was a client with severe migraines, and a very specific diet came through with some medical background. And after I gave that, and they trusted it and they applied it, they were migraine free for the next 5 months, which they'd been having migraines like 3 times a week. So again, it's like the proof and the trust. And it goes both ways, because if the person doesn't trust what comes through, then it doesn't have a chance to work, so it's trust on both sides in a way.
Do you think that, especially when it's medical, because a lot of times I think of Akashic Records, I think of past lives, of, karmic ties, or things that, soul contracts, things like that.
Yeah.
When it comes to medical, is it something where maybe we had something in our past life and we're dealing with that? Do you find it that way? Or is it something where we're trying to clear something because it's an emotion? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it can be both. It's so complex. It can be something from childhood that we're holding, can be something from ancestral lines that we're carrying down. That's quite a common one.
All medical begins with an energetic, emotional response. There's you can't have a medical issue without having an emotional root, because everything is energy. So it only makes sense that, that you would be able to find that information.
Yeah.
And I love that you're giving that, because some people wouldn't trust that. They would say, I'm an Akashic record reader, I'm not a medical medium, but you're still receiving. That's what people don't, I find that it's like you're accessing all of it. So just allow it to come through,
Yeah.
So that kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah. I always say to people, follow it up, research it, see if it resonates. I'm not a doctor, but I really trust to give what comes through, and especially when it does go to those roots, which often it does. It will go right to the root of whatever is showing up in the body. And that feels really important. You were talking about sort of breaking karmic contracts. And I think, some people with the Akashic record, they feel like you can just go into any record, sort of rub out the karma, boom, and that's it. And I don't quite believe it can work like that. It's like there's got to be a certain readiness, a ripeness for a pattern to drop. And often I find what the guides do is they'll either give you a little nudge into your next biggest shape, so that you can really hold that readiness for that pattern to drop away. Or they'll give you a bit of homework, like a reset. It's like, okay, for the next 20 days, go and work with this, go and do this meditation, to kind of bring you to that readiness, to bring you to that next biggest shape. And sometimes people have a bit of resistance to doing the homework because they kind of want the golden ticket, the white
They want the pill,
and,
the magic pill.
So this fixes this, right? They don't realize it's a layer.
Anything. No,
I will be honest.
You get that, but you got to do a little bit of work for it,
Yeah, I will be honest. When I first, especially when I was, going through my spiritual awakening in the way tail beginning, I was open to getting help at that point, and that's the whole point of it. Is like all of a sudden you're open to do things. And I remember my first experience with the Akashic Records. She's actually a dear friend of mine, but she had done, in regards to past life, and this is some of the things that you need to clear. And then so I was like, okay, let's do it, because I put my hat on. I'm going to clear this. So I cleared it. because in my head it's done. All right, next on. Let's go to the next thing. I had no idea there was layers. So like then the same emotions would come up or something come on, and then I would, sit down, and then I would be like, oh my God, I thought I cleared this. Like, why is this coming up again? So I know I was guilty of it. I was totally guilty of like, no, let me take a pill, because that was how I fixed things. It was like, okay, let's fix it.
It's like we're conditioned that way, though. If you look at the 3D world, take a pill. Here's a prescription. It'll be all better. You know what I mean? So I understand why people are like that. And there's times when I'm like, I would take a pill. Give it to me. Let's do it.
I think there's been times. Yeah, I think there's been times where Johanna and I talked to each other and said that, is there a pill today? Because we may need it. We just end this.
Yeah.
So
it's important just to add as well that sometimes there just can be a point when you can feel that something is so ready that the guides really do go, okay, let's do this now. Let's just take this out now, and you can just feel it when that happens, and boom, it's like life changer. So, yeah.
So when people come to you, is it like a one session thing, or because you give them homework? So is it something where you find that they come back to you a little bit later? Or like, how does it really work with you on when you read with people? Because everybody's a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, it's really different for everybody, so some people come once, they get the answers they need, reset, like energetic reset, that's enough. Other people come back, and I have to feel in when someone wants to come back for a second session, like, is it really time? Has the first session really been digested? And sometimes the guides will say, no, not yet, often they do say yes, but there might be a point where if someone comes for a few sessions where the guides want to give them the tools to really access for themselves, to be able to tune into the record for themselves. So it's not about kind of creating that like dependency, it's about giving each person access to their own guidance, really.
I love that you said that, because that's so important for people to recognize that, like, I call it my spirit calendar. That's what I call it, because they'll tell me, it's not time yet. And people are so impatient, and they're like, what do you mean? And so I love that somebody else does the same thing. and listens to that, because it's a real thing,
Yeah. And I loved how she said that it doesn't just clear right away, because that's really what I wanted to debunk today. And, she nailed it. And I feel like that is always something that people strive on, is that they go to these, they think they're going to get something so profound that it's just going to clear it completely. And like you said, sometimes it does on certain elements, but majority of it is like still homework. Yes.
I think it just depends on who you're going to and what their healing abilities are. Because if somebody's been doing some layer work and they're ready to get to the root, then you can pull it. But if they're not, like she said, if they're not prepared, if they're not willing to do the work to go that deep, because when you pull a root, you're gonna be hurting for a few days. It's deep.
It's a really good point. Yeah. So what can you share with us any profound stories that you have had with reading, with going into these records that ring a bell? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but is there a favorite story about when you've accessed them?
I mean, it's difficult also because of confidentiality with clients, it's like, what can I share? What can I not?
Even if it's your own. I just was curious if there's anything that was profound that you really found out when you accessed that.
I mean, there've been many profound experiences. I think sometimes contacting into past lives and having dialogues with aspects of myself that really needed peace, that can be really profound. And things that I had no idea about. I mean, I actually have, since that awakening, I have some kind of doorway of memory open onto some past lives. But when I sat and worked very specifically with the Akashic Record, just to say, okay, what's here that kind of is ready for healing on that past life level. An aspect stepped forward that I had no idea about. And it was a past life in the, 1700 Ireland. And she came forward in a really clear way. And it was this beautiful lady. She had basically been like dragged out of her bed in the middle of the night in front of the whole community, the whole village, and basically like held up as a witch. And, you know, I had to live through this whole past life scenario playing out in front of me. It was very graphic. You know, she was taken out on a boat. She was thrown into the sea. I really had to live through the feelings of that. And then to just really ask her, what did she need? What did she need for forgiveness, for peace? And with this particular aspect, it's like she really just wanted her story heard and felt, you know, someone to actually feel what that was like for her. And just to speak out like that wasn't okay. That wasn't okay, you know, and the way that the community had not stood up for her, that wasn't okay. And then I could feel the point after listening to her where something was really like, something dropped in her, you know, and it was like, okay, I've said my piece now. And I've been seen, I've been heard, and she was ready to go, you know, and then I could just almost like give her an energetic hug. And she could like go back into, you know, like this doorway of light. You can feel when it's true, you know, like you feel it in your whole body, in your whole system when it's true. And that was a deep healing piece for me about that, like in a way the betrayal of the community or the support of the community, like standing up for me. And I would say something shifted there at that time with my wisdom voice and being able to speak. And the part of me that was really scared still to speak with that wisdom voice, because like, what will happen? You know, if I show up with this, if I speak the truth, we carry that stuff, you know, almost in our cells. So yeah, that was a big piece.
I would say so. I mean, that's and the details that you got on there. Do you find that when you are reading, especially for past lives, you know, everyone's a little bit different. It's like that whole thing of trusting that it's coming through. And I love that you gave the example of the tea, because it was like you went out after that and went, well, wait a minute, is this stuff even real? So when you're giving the past life or connecting to it and there is information, has there been a lot of points where you pull stuff up and you're like, this doesn't even make sense to me? And then you've done the research and you're like, it still exists. That did exist? Or like, does that happen a lot?
It happens a lot. I mean, it's incredible how accurate it can be. You know, you get a couple of names, you get a place name, you get a time. You look online, it's like, there's so much information, you know, from things that happened like 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I mean, yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
I'm always curious too, because, you know, well, Johanna, you know how I've been really going down like the research of timeline jumps and, you know, nothing's linear and parallel universe and stuff like that. Is the Akashic Records just as big as that when we go in here, it's bringing us different timelines and different universes? Do you guys feel that way as well?
I know for me, that's where I learned with my guides that all past lives are actually happening simultaneously. They're not actually past or future, and that I could literally go any direction I needed to, up, down, right, left, sideways, whatever, to access gifts from any lifetime or to integrate that aspect of my soul that didn't get healed. So that's how I was taught to use them by my guides. I don't know about you.
Interesting. Yeah, I've never really thought of it that way. The only thing that's coming to me as you say that is that they always say, like, come back to the neutral point, like come back to whatever the pattern is that you're working with from whatever life, from whatever timeline, like really come back to that kind of place of like right here in the body now. Come to this point of peace inside yourself, you know, like breathe into it, come to the silent place, which in a way is beyond all the timelines. You know, it's like it's all happening inside that silent place anyway. Like you could say this now moment. So they always bring you back to that place. And you could say, like,
field.
Yeah, it's simultaneous. Yeah.
And I think that's what I do is I access that quantum field, because I have the ability to go use omniscience, which is to access any space and time. So I pretty much live in that quantum field when I'm working, you know, when I'm on. And so that's why for me, like with timeline jumps and quantum leaps and stuff, you can consciously collapse timelines, but you have to, in the work that I do anyway, you have to integrate that part of your soul, because there's a reason why those timelines are happening simultaneously. And the way you collapse them is by bringing those aspects back to you so that you are whole. You know what I mean? So as far as timeline jumping and quantum leaping and stuff, that's that's how I see it. You go through these wormholes and you're just able to access those points. But you know, everybody sees it and views it differently. You know what I mean? So that's just the way I do it.
And I'm always curious about that, because it's like, you know, if anybody can access it, what does it look like to everybody? Because I'm sure it's not looking like a giant hallway, you know, for everybody. It's like all these books. So I'm always fascinated with, like, what do you see? What's it like just being in the hall? Like, these are records.
I actually see it as a hall of doorways. For me. I see it as but it's only when I take people through it. When I'm personally accessing it, I'm just in a quantum field of darkness, and it just, the information comes. But when I lead another person through it, there's always a hall of doorways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
I'm curious.
I don't so much work with the library, you know. For me, it's more, I'm not so visual. So for me, it's more like, I go to that quantum field, I come into really deep stillness, and then it's like I feel things, I hear things, I see aspects of people's lives or aspects of different timelines. But it's very kind of immediate. I don't have much visuals around it. I just know that the guides are there. I feel their presence. You know, I can feel when I'm plugged in.
That's
and
awesome.
If I'm not plugged in, it doesn't work. And there are times where the record doesn't open for some reason. And I feel like normally it's kind of a protection. Like, there's a reason that it doesn't open. It's happened maybe 5-6 times over the years. And I don't push it. If I'm not plugged in, we're not doing it, you know? And,
Well, and it might be something on the other person's end too. Like, they're not in the right headspace. They're not, you know, it's something they're not ready for. Because I think the information, right, no matter what aspect you're bringing through, the information that comes through, you have to be ready to receive that. And if you're not ready to receive that, it can actually be damaging to you. It can actually postpone your evolution. And so, you know, it's a good, you know, it's good that you say that, because some people, they will doubt themselves, like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I access right now? And there's always, it's always happening for a reason.
Yeah, there's always a wisdom. And I have to say, the first time it ever happened, when I couldn't open a lady's record, I was really shocked. You know, she really trusted it. And what actually happened was, I have to say, her beautiful mum passed the next day. And it was like, that kind of information, you know, could just be too shocking. So
that would have been a lot.
There's a wisdom. And I just trust also, even within the body of a reading, if there's things that the person's soul isn't ready for, it just doesn't come through. You know, I really trust them. So
yeah. Do you find that I mean, when you're tapping in on, the people who go for a reading for you, is it something that's live, or are you doing something that's on this, you know, kind of video recorded, or do you, like, how do you go about it? Do you sit with them? Do you do it on Zoom?
Yeah, we sit together, usually through Zoom. Okay. Sometimes it's here in Orgiva and they come to me, but usually through Zoom, and we record it. And I think the recording part is important, because there's always different layers that can come through at different times, you know. So listening again a month later, you might receive completely different energetic keys than you got the first time, you know, or a different layer that you weren't ready for the first time. So yeah.
Do you find that every time you go in, it's almost like, because I know, as you know, with light workers, when we go in, is that there's a point where we're growing too, and we're learning new things. Have you found that your gifts have expanded in different elements? And if so, what are those kind of niches that have expanded, or you've actually felt more confident in?
Yeah, it's interesting. I know it has expanded, but I don't know if I can put it into really precise words in what ways it's expanded. I think my confidence and my trust in what comes through has grown, like you said at the beginning. So I'm less likely to try and like dilute something. And I think like my subtlety has grown, you know, and my capacity to just like, one of the most important things I find when I open the record is like, so much love is pouring through for that person that I'm sitting with, you know, and that can actually almost be quite a strong thing to hold that container for the amount of love that can pour through the record from the guides for the one sitting there. And I think my capacity to like pour that through has got stronger. And
it feels amazing.
And I remember them saying in the beginning, like, don't get so hung up on the words, because actually the energy that's pouring through, like the transmission, is even more important in some ways. So I think that's got stronger and stronger.
Right.
And it's very much like shining back to the person their own gifts, you know, so that they just get their own kind of fantasticness, like their own highest essence. And often that comes without you saying very much, you know.
So I know you mentioned Linda Howe's book, but are there things that you find personally that you would like to share with others who are interested on trying to access the Akashic Records? Some tips that you could give to our audience of what they can do to start trusting themselves?
Yeah. I mean, there are so many ways to access the record. Some people access it through meditation, through Reiki. But the way that I always work with, because I feel it's really protected, what you access working this way. And that is the pathway prayer that Linda Howe offers in her book. So for me, when you use the pathway prayer, you go there direct, and you know that what you're calling through is like really clear, you know, it's really clean. And she gives the tip of like to work with it for 30 days. And I really feel that it's like a muscle that we can develop, that capacity to receive. And I think the most important thing to overcome when we start to work with it is that voice of self-doubt. You know, it's the main thing that blocks people receiving, because I truly believe everyone can receive, you know. It may be that people have different ways of receiving better. I think for most people, like automatic writing is a really good way. So you may be like, you use the prayer, you open the record, you pick up the pen, and you just start writing whatever comes. And you follow that first thought, that first impulse without second guessing it, you know, and you just let your hand start moving. And it's like, don't stop until it feels complete. Maybe don't even read it right away. You know, just let it be there. Take a breath. And then when you do read it, it's like, it might not even make complete sense right away.
Yeah.
But I guarantee, like a few days later or a week later, you look back and you go, oh, wow. Like, yeah, that's really right. So it's kind of just putting that inner critic aside when you're working with the record, you know. And it might be that in the beginning, during the first days, it's quite subtle what comes through. You might just feel something in your body or get a few images and not so many words. But it's like giving that muscle chance to develop. And I feel like pretty sure that by the end of that 30 days, you're going to be trusting what you receive, you know. And with this pathway prayer, I don't know whether I could I say the words of it? Because in a way, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I won't say the whole prayer, but I think the most important part is like we ask to see ourselves as we're known and loved in the Akashic record. And then you feel this massive acceleration in vibration. And basically what happens is you just get flooded with this kind of love that they hold you in. So that's for me, the most important part of the prayer, you know. So you get that acceleration and vibration, you get pulled up to your highest height in a way, and then you ask whatever questions that you have. And so you just know that whatever is coming is for your highest benefit. You know, we always say that, like, give me the courage to receive whatever's for me, for my highest benefit, and for the highest benefit of all those connected to me. So, I mean, that's why I say to use something like the pathway prayer, because then you just know that what you're receiving is for your good, you know.
Yeah, it becomes almost like a personal experience. You know, like Johanna, you actually, I remember so I took a course with Johanna. I was on healing, but then we had the other one. What was the other group? It was the clairvoyance group. We're our Claire's group, right? So she was running this Claire's group, and I remember you had automatic writing in there when we first started, and the first thing that you were saying is to clear your pathway to do that, which is very similar to what Linda Howe's prayer is. It's very similar to that. And I know you've never read it, so I'm trying to compare it so you have something to compare to.
Well, I mean,
but
for me, I just in the beginning, I mean, as you the stronger and the more consistent you are with your practice over years, you kind of drop the prayers and all of that because you know your connection point. So for me in the beginning, I just called in, and sometimes when I do, transmissions, I do the same thing. I call in all of the archangels, Mother, Father, God, and my guides, and I do my own setup because I find that whether I use that or not anymore, if someone's going to listen to it, I don't know where they are in their consciousness, and I want them to feel safe. And so for me, anytime anybody's learning, you should always do any type of practice to build that strength of, connection around you to make sure that you are in a good place. So whether it's a pathway prayer or another thing, any type of ritual that helps you feel that sacred, safe connection is always a smart thing to do. Always.
Yeah, I agree with that. Have you guys found, I know when I first started doing automatic writing, since, I know it's about the Akashic Records, but it's a tool that, people use to get in there. One of the things I noticed was my writing changed, like not just my dialect, but like my writing style changed. And I was like, this doesn't even look like my handwriting.
I can't read my own writing when I auto write. It does not. It looks like Dr. Scribble.
Dr. Scribble.
I don't know what this says. Sorry.
I mean, I would have like notes of stuff, and I would be like, what is this?
It's really hard to keep up, huh? To actually write fast enough in real time.
Yeah.
We can all learn shorthand or hieroglyphs or something.
Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the main reasons why I switched from writing to video diarying a lot. So I would channel and do it that way. Just because it comes in so quickly for me that I can't write quick enough. I just can't. So it's interesting to do that. But I do think it is a really good tool to get in there. I think that's an awesome one.
And it gives you the proof. It's like a proof diary at the same time, because people who are struggling to trust and not doubt in the beginning, like you go back and you see your progress, when you're first doing that. So it has like a double bonus.
Yeah. And of course, like voice recorder on the phone, if you're out and about, if you're somewhere quiet and something starts coming through, you've always got that voice recorder there. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good tip too.
Yeah. But I think more and more you can just start receiving it internally, no? And just really trust what comes through that way.
You mentioned, and I am curious on this too. You mentioned that sometimes when people have their readings, that for them to hold on it to a little later, and then it might come down the road. Have you found that happens more frequently now, like in this, or are you finding that, like even for your own messages that you get for you, is that it might not make sense now, and trusting it that if it does happen, it happens, or if it doesn't, like you're still open to the fact that maybe it didn't happen here in this timeline? Like, do you hit a lot of that?
I think, to be honest, that's the one thing that's changed more, is that now I feel like when I'm reading for me, because I still read for me, it's immediate. It's spot on. And there's no kind of like delay or waiting, or it's like boom. And what they say is so direct now. They don't have to kind of like play around the sides with me now. They know I can receive it. And it might be totally not what I'm expecting or not what I want to hear. Like sometimes they can be pretty direct. But I just feel it straight away, like, oh yeah, this is true. This is now. This is, it's like, don't put it in the fridge for later. Like this is now.
But I think what you were saying, Tanya, is almost like when you get mediumship readings, which, Akashic Records is a form of mediumship.
Yeah.
Like for me, I know Tanya's had the same example. I remember when I was first having my awakening, and I had a mediumship reading, and this man was like, or this woman, she's like, your dad's holding a white dog. And I'm like, I don't have a white dog. I've never had a white dog. Like you get so caught up in a detail that it's almost like you can't access anything beyond that, because you put yourself in a box that's not true for you. And then, so funny enough, a couple months later, I'm going through boxes of pictures and pictures, and bigger than shit, there's my dad with a freaking white dog. And I'm like, you know, and so it's like later, if you, I always tell people, and I know Tanya you probably do the same thing. If you don't recognize it right now, don't push it away. Just allow it to be there, because it might come in later. Would you agree, Tanya?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing, and I would love to get your take on this, Carly, because I already know Johanna's take on this, is how is it for those who are really fighting that that's not it, or like, no, that's not the issue, or that's not it. Like, how do you react to that? Because I know that was a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah. The thing is, what I tend to do when I can feel that someone's a little bit in resistance to what's coming through, the beauty is I just take my hands off it, you know, and the guides have so many creative ways of like coming around the side and coming back to the same thing. They'll sometimes spend a whole session doing that, you know, it's like come around the side and then boom.
Come around the side. They're flanking in the reading.
You know, the moment where it drops in for the person, you know, and I would say 95% of the time they're so creative, it does drop in. You know, it's very rare that someone still goes away at the end of the session still in that resistance. But for me, that's really frustrating. You know, if that is the case, it can be quite frustrating.
Well, yeah, because it's like you're spending a whole session on this one piece.
You know what I mean? And you can feel the person going, but I want to know about this. And the guys are going, look at the inner child. And they're like,
I can't even tell you the way I do my readings now, you know, because I'm a tarot reader, but I also do, you know, other channeling, but I don't even do, like, I'll let them give me my questions, and I like their questions. That's fine. But I actually connect with them before. So I'm connecting to the records. So I don't even let them get their questions in before, just so I say, if this resonates. And then sometimes if it's like, that's because I just have to get it out. Like, this is my time to get it out for you guys. And if it doesn't resonate, that's fine. Let's just get to your questions, and, you know, if they can come out there. But sometimes we never get to the questions because they're so shocked with what comes up. And like, that's something that I find is so amazing about this. And that's why I really love the Akashic Records, is that you can, you know, there's things that we're as channelers, we're getting input on that we can trust enough to say and express that to the person in front of us, because we're healers, and to allow them to feel that and to hear those words. It might not, like you said, resonate at that exact moment, but you still can trust yourself enough knowing, no, I need to get this out. I need to state this. And like you said, there's going to be times too where it's just closed off, and you're like, you're not going to get an answer on that, you know? Yeah. I mean, some people can be very particular. If they want to have a question answered and it's not answered, it's like, you know, it's not the time for that. You know, and it's just, you know, people do get stuck on that because they want to have an answer.
And also on the other side of that, sometimes I'm amazed how receptive people can be to what comes through the guidance, that they could never receive it from, let's say, Carly. You know, I could never speak with that level of directness. But when it comes through the Akasha, because it's so held, somehow it just goes straight in, you know, and that can be the really life-changing. I remember, I feel like, I can share this story. I remember with one particular man, it coming through super strong at the beginning of the reading. You have no respect for the feminine. You have no respect for the feminine. And if this part changes, you know, and he was really told strongly, you got to see the goddess in your wife, in your mum. And this particular man, he came back a year later. He just phoned me, I think Christmas Eve or something, and I got a phone call in my house in Spain. He's in London. He went, you know, that piece you gave me, that completely changed my life. And it completely healed my relationship with all the women. You know?
You're going to have a whole line of clients coming to you.
Yeah. just with that statement alone.
You can fix my husband? Hold on, let me book you real quick.
Fix my husband.
So are you teaching people how to access the records now? Have you taken that leap yet? Or are you going to take that leap?
Yeah, I do have some courses teaching people how to access their own record. I don't have, I would teach people to read for others in a way of just practicing together. I don't have a facilitator course yet. But I actually think the most important tool is probably learning to access it for yourself.
Absolutely.
Because that can completely like reshape your life. Yeah. So yeah, I do both physical courses here in Orgiva and online as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I know that we have about 10 minutes in here. Is there anything that is going on that you would like for our audience to know? Do you have any specials? Is there something that you have a workshop coming up or anything like that?
So let me see what's coming up. Well, I'm doing a lot of presentations at the moment on a site. Can I plug another site?
Sure can.
They are amazing.
Plug whatever you want.
You can plug what you want on here.
In fact, I think it's where we met, Tanya.
Yeah, it's probably
I'm so in love with this site. So I'm jumping on once a week on Earth Elders. It's actually called Earth Elders and the Galactic Fire. Incredible community of like 50,000 people that just sprung up through the lockdown. And awesome what's going on there. So once a week, I'm jumping on there and giving kind of, giving like a little series of workshops each week on how to access the record, different aspects of the record. I'm doing regular presentations on my YouTube channel. So at the moment there's a lot of freebies going out.
Yeah, you do. You had a lot, and so that was
really important.
Yeah, and the site that she mentioned that's actually a Facebook group that you can go on to. Johanna, I'm actually trying to get the person who created that group on the show as well. So because it's such a great community, and I love what is created there.
It did come fast when they set that up, and they talked about how many healers were going to be in there working. That thing grew overnight.
It was like
They had a 7-day summit, and at the end of that 7-day summit, they said they went from 111 people to 40,000 people at the end of 7 days.
Because they were like doing it every hour. There was somebody on there. I mean, it was like 24/7. They were running this, and that was really cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. Yeah. But we are so excited to that you have popped on the show, and I mean you had I really loved how you really just nailed in the fact that anyone can access this. And that it is as easy by just taking the time to do it, guys. Really, it is. It's just, if you want to access this, you take the time.
It's a commitment. It's like anything else. You got to commit to it.
Yeah, you absolutely have to commit to it for sure. Because, and I know we're getting at the tail end, but I gotta share something real quick. I know when I first started to channel, I wasn't calling it the Akashic Records. I was just like, I'm getting these messages. I don't know what it is. I didn't even have a name for it. So for those of you who are getting messages and don't know anything about it, just be open to it. Just being open to that's part of the records or not. And if what resonates to you, because that's the most important thing that I found through this. And like I said, I just was naive to it. I was like, I don't know what this means. Like, I just thought it was past life stuff. I didn't realize it was like, a whole collective of, more than that. It's not just like Western. This is worldly. This is something that is like in the ethers. So that's what I always found really cool about it.
Well, and we are conditioned as humans to have to label everything. And when you go into the ethers, there is no names. These beings don't have names. They give us names to make us, because we're human and we like to label things. I mean, that's always what they say. So you don't have to label it the Akashic Records. You don't have to label it anything. Just trust yourself and record it. And, just what Tanya said, just trust, just allow it to come through.
Yeah. And for those of you, I would really love to hear if you guys do this challenge, especially if you use the 30-day challenge that she had mentioned in that Linda Howe book. And I'm going to put the link in the description box, guys, for that book, because it is a great book.
It's a great book. And just can I add something about how people can just keep up with me?
Sure, absolutely.
Just because if I ever do have any kind of courses coming up or special offers on the readings, it generally goes through my Facebook group. So if people want to like come in and keep up with it, then my Facebook group, Akashic Soul Readings, is really the place to do that. Yeah. So
Great. And I have your website too on here, displayed here, akashicsoulreadings.net, and if they want to reach you there too. So definitely all different ways to reach you. You know, like I said, we're really excited to have you aboard. We appreciate you being on the show. For those of you who do, like I have mentioned, the challenges, or if you're doing that, we want to hear about it. We want to see what your experiences are. Make sure you comment. Let us know if you've had experiences on there, because I would love to just do just an episode of people's experiences with that. So we'll see what happens on there. But guys, don't forget to like, share. Sharing is caring. And we will see you guys next time. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.